You're alive.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. This is the House Rules and Executive Nominations Committee. We have bill hearings on 3 bills. Actually, only 2 of them were being posted because it was brought to our attention that the Prince George's County School Board redistricting bill, which had been sitting in rules for a while, had not been heard. And so we need to hear that today. The chair of the delegation is here to present that bill, and then we can move on to the published agenda. Delegate Charles, please present the bill. You're on mute.
There we go. Something's going on with my phone this morning. Good morning,
Thank you very
Madam
much.
Chair.
We can
Good
hear you
morning,
now.
Madam Chair, and to the members of the Rules Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Nick Charles, Chairman of the Prince George's County House Delegation. I'm here on behalf of House Bill 1473, also PG 50722. And this bill is a simple bill that it took a lot of cross coordination and effort between the Senate, between the House delegation. We worked with the current school board members. We worked with the county executive staff, and we had a consensus also with all of the advocates in the education sphere in Prince George's County. And the consensus was a simple fix because we have to make amendments to the map based off of the census. And so it was a simple fix, and it was only one precinct that moved. The Senate has already passed this bill out of their chambers, and it's coming over to us. And this is our form as well to go back over. This bill passed our Prince George's County House delegation unanimously. So I'm asking that it come out of rules so that it can go to the education subcommittee within Ways and Means and pass unanimously there as well.
Actually, Delegate, it's in the purview of the Rules Committee. We will be voting it out at the end of today's meeting.
Okay.
To the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much.
Any questions for the chairman of the Prince George's delegation? I don't see any. Speak up. Okay, going. Thank you very much, Delegate Charles. That concludes the public hearing on that bill. We will now go to House Bill 1220, Delegate Riley.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Healy and Vice Chair Holmes and the members of the Rules, House Rules and Executive.
Hey, do you have any change for 10?
No.
Delegate Branch, you're on. You need to mute.
Okay, thank you. For the record, I am Delegate Teresa Riley from District 35B, here to introduce House Bill 1220, General Assembly Use of Force Requirement Training Program. We all want to be able to make the best decisions possible on the legislation that comes before us. Therefore, we do a lot of research on various topics to educate ourselves on the issues. But reading materials from a book or online about the challenges that our law enforcement professionals face in their work cannot provide us with a real understanding of the dynamic demands that are placed on them during their interactions with the public. This bill would allow legislators to experience a small glimpse of what it is like to walk in their shoes as a law enforcement officer during a variety of scenarios in the virtual simulation, followed by a discussion of the scenario outcomes. The goal of this experience is to equip our legislators with a greater understanding of the demands and the stresses involved in policing as we contemplate laws that impact how they carry out their duties. Between county agencies and the Maryland State Police, we have several locations that have the ability to provide this education for our legislators. For instance, we have a virtual simulator in Anne Arundel County, Baltimore County, Harford County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and the state police just purchased one as well. I do believe that this experience will be extremely beneficial to our legislators. I come from a long line of history of family members in law enforcement. So I witnessed and heard the many challenges they face on day after day, working in the unknown of the next call. I thought I understood that more than others, but I realized that that was not true after I went through the virtual simulation training in our local county. I did an interim for our Harford County delegation, and we did it, and it was very beneficial, and everyone totally enjoyed it. I do know that there has been, I think JPR has, a lot of their members have gone, and they've, have spoken very highly of it as well. That's when I really realized that, what they really go through on a day-to-day basis after going through that training. So I don't want you to overthink this bill. It's very, very simple. I think we can, there's really no real challenges. I do believe that these agencies would love to have the delegation go through there. The bill states that you would have to do it in your first 2 years of your term, but I would be willing to, I know that could be a challenge, so I would be willing to actually amend it so that you would do it one time. So if you're here for 3 terms, you still only have to do it, one time. So if, the committee sees fit to speak of this and to go forward, I would be willing to do that. So please keep that in mind. And like I said, don't overthink the bill. It's pretty simple. And I ask for a favorable vote, and I will take any questions. Now, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you will see, because we only had the 1 day to get our testimony up. So most of the testimony that you have, I believe, was sent via email, and it may not be on the electronic witness. So we have one from the chiefs and sheriffs. We have one from the FOP and several other folks, I do believe. And I do have some people that will actually be giving oral testimony. Thank you for your consideration.
We'll take the witnesses first, and then we'll take questions afterwards.
Yes, thank you.
Let me see. I'm sorry. Mark Fox is signed up to testify. Is Mr. Fox here?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Thank you very much. Please proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good morning. I'm Mark Fox. I'm a lieutenant with the Harford County Sheriff's Office. I have been with the Sheriff's Office for 25 years. I have been a use of force and defensive tactics instructor for the last 20 years of my career. In addition to being a certified use of force and defensive tactics instructor, I am also an expandable baton instructor, a handcuff instructor, a taser instructor, and a Force Science Institute analyst. During my 20 years as an instructor, I have instructed entrance level and in-service training for the members of the Sheriff's Office. During entrance level and in-service training, deputies receive several hours of training on the various levels of force they are authorized to apply, how circumstances impact the authorized level of force, de-escalation techniques, and clearly established laws that govern the use of force. Deputies participate in classroom discussions, observe and analyze video footage of use of force incidents, utilize our virtual firearms simulator, and participate in reality-based training to learn what is an objectively reasonable use of force. In the past, I have provided virtual reality training for members of our community, media outlets, politicians, and students, and each group gained a greater appreciation for the use of force decision-making process. It is important that the members of the community we serve and those who create the laws that we enforce and abide by have a basic understanding of the use of force decision-making process. As an instructor, I found that participating in hands-on virtual reality simulations is an excellent way to obtain this understanding. It is for these reasons that I'm asking the committee for a favorable report on this legislation, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is Bill Davis in the room?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you have 2 minutes, okay?
Okay. My name is Bill Davis. I'm the Chief Deputy of the Harford County Sheriff's Office. And I'd like to thank Madam Chair and the committee for allowing me this opportunity to testify in support of this bill that Delegate Riley has introduced to the committee. I really feel it's an important piece of legislation that I feel that will not only help the legislature understand use of force, but I think it's a benefit to the community and also to law enforcement throughout the state. As many on the committee are already aware, last year, the Maryland legislature passed a use of force bill that changed the standard of use of force for police officers from necessary and proportional, from objective reasonableness, which Lieutenant Fox had just talked about. As of this date, that standard has not been able to be defined by the Attorney General's office, or we're still waiting on clear guidelines on that, because as part of that legislation, every police officer in the state is required to sign a training document saying that they understand what necessary and proportional means. And we still don't know what it means. So we're still working on that, trying to get that figured out. But I think having all the people in the legislature coming to one of our virtual simulator trainings would be hugely beneficial to them. We have already, as Delegate Raleigh had talked about, many of our Harford County delegation and others throughout the state, including Senator Will Smith, have come to our virtual training. And I think all of them have been enlightened by what they have seen during those virtual trainings. And we've also sent many members of the media through it and members of our community. It is certainly a training that shows you what police officers have to go through and make split-second decisions. And it puts you really in real life situations. And I think you really do learn a lot from that. And I would also say that that's pretty much what my testimony is at this point. I would follow it with Lieutenant Fox, that we go through training each year for this, and it's still a complicated situation for police officers when they're put in these life and death situations, or for the legislatures in the state to have that opportunity. I look at it more as an opportunity for the legislature than that being something that they're forced to do, because they will learn a lot from it. You will learn, I'm sorry to say you will learn a lot from it. And I think you'll see it from our point of view in a lot of ways. So I'd like to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have a few questions. I'll start with Delegate Shoemaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question from my friend, the bill sponsor. Delegate Raleigh, I mean, this sounds like a great idea. When you went through your training, approximately how many hours did you have to devote to it?
Actually, I know the bill says 2 hours of training. Again, you're going through an actual virtual experience to where you're the first officer, on it. And then you have to realize that you're the first, and then you have a backup person. So 2 people can actually do the scenario at one time. So, when we say that the legislators have to do this, there's 188 of us total. I think it could be done very easily, because you can go in groups, you could go in committees, now if it was committees, you probably have to, add a few more hours, because the 2 hours you would probably, probably go through like 2 or 3 different scenarios. And then, going through the questions afterwards is very, very interesting, because you'll realize, oh, wow, I didn't see that. Like there was one instance where, there was a person, with a gun to a woman's head, but there was a baby in the background. So you have to decide, if you have to shoot that person, where you have to do it. So the questions at the end is very, very good, very educational, and the opportunity is amazing. But I think with the 2-hour period, I think that, with a small group, you could probably get a lot of different scenarios in and be able to talk to the law enforcement to see, what they would have done differently, because of, obviously they're police officers, and they go through a whole lot more training than just this one virtual training. But it does put you, just gives you a small glimpse of how they have to react and how they learn how to react. And us we're not police officers. So, you will make mistakes. But those are the things that they learn through all their training. And I think that's just so good for legislators to see what they go through. And, it's a cold call. They don't know what's coming next. And then you're, as soon as you pull up and that you're in the real scenario, you have a weapon, and you have to decide what you have to do. There's pedestrians, all around you. It's 3D. It's really pretty amazing. And it really, it's real. So it's a great experience. And I think, and an opportunity. And I think the 2 hours would be sufficient. If it's just 2 people go or 1 person goes, you might be able to, make it shorter. but I don't think it's an overburden to do this for 2 hours for one term.
All right. Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, delegates. Delegate Shalega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Delegate Riley. Great bill. I too participated in one of these trainings at Baltimore County. And I just want to give a shout out. Delegate Ben Brooks was pretty darn good. And Delegate Kathy Forbes and I were pretty darn bad. So I just was wondering, maybe this would be for Bill or Mark. Are the trainings the same? You know, we had like a simulator handgun, but it was a real handgun, just, you know, modified to be a simulator. Are they all virtually the same?
So I'll try to take that first, if that's okay. So a lot of the agencies have the same facility that we have, the same computer system that we have. It's called Virtra. And some of them, and that technology is improving, obviously, daily. So I think a lot of them are the same. I think Baltimore County is the same, Howard County is the same, and I'm not sure which one the state police just purchased, because some of them now are coming out, instead of being physical, where you stand on the stage and you got screens all the way around you, like the one that we have, they're using virtual reality glasses, but they still have weapons. And the weapons are, so for an example, the weapons are actual firearms, but they've been deconstructed so that they don't actually take live ammunition anymore. There are CO2 cartridges put in them, and that's what makes the guns fire. Sort of like firing a BB gun with a CO2 cartridge in it, but you get the same experience in your hand. So I think most of them are pretty much the same. Mark, would you agree with that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you. I think this would be valuable training. I certainly learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, delegates. Delegate Wilson, Chair Wilson.
Thank
Please.
you. I guess this is for the bill sponsor, because obviously I wouldn't expect you to make those of us who have gone through this multiple times in our careers to go back through this again. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would definitely, I mean, we could amend the bill to state that if you have already done the virtual training, whether, from your job or what have you, yes, we could exclude that.
And I will say this, I've gone through this as a prosecutor as well as an elected official, and I have a different take than I've heard before, because to me, it's the equivalent of putting a civilian in a tank or flight simulator. Yes, it's shocking because we're not trained individuals. I thought it was very misleading going through this because, number one, I am a combat soldier, as is my vice chair. So for me, going through the training was to try to put a delegate in the shoes and say, well, now you see what police officers go through. That's why they can't count the bullets. We're not trained to do that. You are. You know your situational awareness just like we do. So I think sometimes when we go through that training, it's very misleading because it may be daunting when it's your first time and you've never held a gun before, but you guys have. You guys know what's expected of you. So beyond, I just don't get the impact because you're not putting me in this police officer scenario. I didn't go through any additional firearms training. I didn't go through any additional schooling or college that they did. It really is, I don't want to say a scare tactic, but it comes off as such. And having gone through it, to me, it was comical. And I say that because I can identify threats. This is what I was trained to do. I know how to use Simtech. I know how to shoot someone in the legs and disable them without shooting them in the chest because they have a knife, which is different than you guys train. Which again, my point goes back to, do you really believe that we're going to get the impact that you're looking at when all it's doing is putting a civilian, like I said, I might as well put you in a tank simulator, sir. And then you can say, well, that was amazing. I don't know how you can drive a tank. Yes, because you weren't trained to drive a tank. It just feels like a patch on the back kind of thing. When it's not the realism, I don't think you're going to get the impact of, oh, now I understand what police officers go through. Could you explain what I'm missing, sir?
Well, actually, I did mention in the testimony that I don't want the legislators to be trained as a police officer. That's not their job.
Correct.
Okay, I think the question was for one of the officers who testified.
Oh, okay.
So I'll take it. I disagree. I think it gives civilians and legislators the opportunity to be placed in situations where they have to make the same decisions that police officers make, whether they're trained or not. So they get an understanding of what goes on in the mind of a police officer when they're trying to make that split-second decision of whether or not they need to take use force or to de-escalate, because that's the other thing that these simulators are really meant to do. They're de-escalation tools, because not every situation that we're going to put you in is a situation where you're supposed to shoot. In fact, many of the situations are situations where we expect you to use your de-escalation and your verbal skills to be able to de-escalate the situation. So I think it's important that legislatures see that and also understand that it's a de-escalation when we are being placed in the use of force situation, especially when, I mean, quite frankly, when we're changing the laws in the state for what a police officer's standard is for use of force, particularly when we're saying necessary and proportional, and what does that really mean? And I think it gives them a better understanding of what they go through. Now, of course, they don't go through the same training as a police officer, and we don't expect you to go through the same training, but I think it does offer some enlightenment as to what police officers go through when they're placed in these situations.
And so I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is because every time we use a Simtech and the 21 feet and the knife, and that's the whole deadly, shoot center mass. I always did it differently. I always shot in the legs, and I always explained, because if you're trained like I was, and I'm not near as trained as you are, you can disable somebody. So I just don't want it to be this misleading thing about, like I said, it would be the equivalent of me putting you in a flight simulator and saying, okay, let me know when you're ready to launch the missile. It's all going to be shocking to you because you're not trained to do that. So I just didn't want it to be something so misleading that it puts this air of, I don't know what the word would be, but this air of almost impossibility of your job, because you are trained to do this job. We expect that of you because you're a professional. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Officer. We're happy to have you here today. Any other questions? I'm sorry. Are there any questions from members of the committee?
Okay, Madam Chair, may I add something? I'm sorry. Yes, as a
okay.
follow-up. Thank you.
Sure.
You have to notice in the bill too, there really is no penalty. I didn't want there to be a penalty. Anything that happens is if you do or do not take the course, your name is on a website on the Maryland State Police website. So, if you really feel uncomfortable to do it, then you don't have to. Your name just does not show up. So there really is we're not going to come and lock you up because you didn't do it. It's just really an encouragement, because I do think that it does help you make the right decisions and gives you a little bit of glimpse of what they go through. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Riley. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 1220. Members, please turn to House Joint Resolution 8. Delegate Resnick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Joint Resolution 8 is a resolution that expresses the will of the Maryland legislature to stand in solidarity with the government and the people of Ukraine in this time of turmoil for them during the Russian invasion. Obviously, the bill is late because the Russian army had no respect for our legislative calendar. So we want to make sure that this gets out as quickly as we can and stand and expresses the will of the Maryland people in standing with the people of Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the sponsor? All right, we don't have any witnesses on this. I think that every member of the legislature would love to be on this, but I'm only speaking for myself. But I think that I noticed that the co-sponsors all have a personal connection to Ukraine, and if you'd like to explain that a little bit, I think that would be great.
Sure. So in addition to myself and Delegate Pena-Melnick, we obviously have Delegate Lutke as the majority leader and Delegate Buckle as minority leader, showing the solidarity of the chamber. But obviously, for those of you who don't know, I was actually born in Kyiv. I'm a Soviet immigrant and a refugee. And so Ukraine is my mother country. Delegate Pena-Melnick is obviously Dominican, so that connection is clear. No, I'm kidding. Her husband is, and she's on here as well, but she can explain. But her husband is a Ukrainian immigrant like myself. And for those of you that don't know, Melnick is the Ukrainian equivalent of Smith in the United States. It's a very, very common last name. So when you see that, you know the connection. So,
thank you very much, Delegate Pena-Melnick. Do you want to say something? All right. If not, I want to thank everyone. That concludes the public hearing on.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry. Okay, go
Can
ahead,
you
Delegate.
hear me? Yeah, I apologize. I'm having internet issues, which is why I can't put the my video on, but I do hope that you're able to hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So my husband's father was born in Ukraine, and my husband's father, when he was 14 years old, was picked up by the Germans from the streets. And because he was not Jewish, they sent him to a labor camp. He never saw his family again until the early 90s, when the republics became independent. He went back with my husband and met his only sister and a lot of his cousins and family members. My sister-in-law, Halia, ended up going to Ukraine with her husband, and they served for 2 years, actually, in Ukraine, and they helped the community when they were becoming independent with their a lot of different incubators. We are very close. That is, my kids grew up going to Ukrainian language camps. So if you can imagine Dominican, Ukrainian, very confused kids, but loving the culture. We went to Suzy-Q to camp. It is part of our culture. So I am Dominican, but very much a Yuki. And I am so grateful for this resolution, Delegate Resnick, because my family is very in turmoil, very depressed about what's going on right now. So thank you so much, and I appreciate the support from the committee.
Thank you very much, Delegate Peña-Melnick. And that does conclude the hearing on this House Joint Resolution. We are going to go into a voting session so that we can pass this resolution and the Prince George's County School Board redistricting bill, which is urgent because it needs to be done for this upcoming election. So with that, I'm going to turn to the Vice Chair, Delegate Holmes, to make the motions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move favorable on the House Joint Resolution 8, solidarity with the government of the people of Ukraine. Also move favorable on House Bill 1473, Prince George's County redistricting plan.
Okay, I'm going to take a voice vote unless someone wants to vote on them separately or have a roll call. All those in favor of both bills, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say no, so it can be heard. Did anyone say no? All right, it's unanimous, and thank you very much. We are now, those bills both passed unanimously, and we are now going to go to the list of re-referrals. Delegate Holmes.
Move favorable, Madam Chair, to re-refer the following bills. House Bill to the appropriate committee. House Bill 1388, House Bill 1389, 1399, 1412, 1430, 1436, 1441, 1456, 1459, 1464, 1468, 1469, 1470, 1471, 1472, 1474, 1476, and 1477, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention and for being here this morning. This concludes this meeting of the House Rules and Executive Nominations